So as you know, you have a fair idea about that there are these 5 things that are there for the reflex action to take place. That is the receptor, the sensory nerve fiber, part of a central nervous system, motor nerve fibers and effector organ. Remember, we call sensory nerve fibers as afferent nerve fibers also, and we call motor nerve fibers as efferent nerve fibers also. So as you can see in this image, look at this image very carefully. This we label as grey matter and this we label as white matter, right? And you can just see here, this is the receptor. I told you we need 5 of these things. First of all, we need a receptor which is going to receive the stimulus. For example, you can take an example of your skin cells. They are going to receive the stimulus. For example, your skin touches a hot object. So the receptors over here, they are going to, these are basically what they are, thermoreceptors. Thermo means heat. So the thermoreceptors are going to actually take the stimulus, and after this what we have, the sensory nerve fibers, which we also call as afferent nerve fibers. They are going to take this nerve impulse to what? To the central nervous system, and here we are showing the spinal cord. So this nerve fiber is what? It is your sensory nerve fiber, or you can also call it as afferent nerve fiber, right? Then this information or this impulse is carried to what? This CNS, central nervous system, the spinal cord. And here we have this interconnecting neuron or nerve cell that we also call as the relay neuron or relay nerve fiber. The connecting nerve fiber that is connecting the sensory nerve fiber with this motor nerve fiber is known as what? It is known as a relay nerve fiber. Then you can also call it as interneuron. You can also call relay neuron as interneuron, because it is actually serving as a connecting link between these two nerve fibers. Now here the message is actually interpreted, right, and the information is sent to this what? This motor nerve fiber, which we also call as efferent nerve fiber, right, and this nerve impulse or the message that is interpreted by your central nervous system is taken to what? To the effector organ, right, which is actually, here I have shown the muscle which is acting as an effector organ, right. So this is the mechanism of reflex action and the path taken by the reflex action. What is the path? The path is from this receptor to the sensory nerve fiber, then to the central nervous system, that is spinal cord region, then we have the relay neuron, that is the interneuron, and then the nerve impulse is, the message that is interpreted is transferred to what? The motor neuron or the efferent neuron, right, and then effector organ. So this path followed by this reflex action to take place, we call this path as what? We call this path as reflex arc. We call this path as reflex arc. So now we are going to see through an animation how this mechanism is actually there going inside your bodies. So just see it very carefully. We have the sensory neurons, they have this dendrites, right, and what is going to happen? From the receptors, they are going to receive the stimulus, and this is going to be sent through from which nerve fibers? From sensory nerve fibers, and then to central nervous system, then to motor nerve fibers, and then to the effector organ. So let's see how it happens. The reflex action generally involves spinal cord for quick response to specific stimulus. Now why we generally talk about spinal reflex actions in detail? Because the thinking process of the brain is slow as compared to the spinal cord. Spinal cord is going to produce instant response, but the brain is not going to produce such an instant response. So because of this reflex actions, we are actually decreasing the burden on your brain, right? Path taken by nerve impulse in a reflex action is called as what? It's called as reflex arc, right? Now just see how it happens. We have the thermoreceptors or the receptors, for example in your skin, they are going to actually send what? The nerve impulse through what? Through the sensory nerve fibers to your central nervous system, that is spinal cord. Then this sensory nerve neurons, as you can see, this impulse is transmitted to the motor nerve fiber from what? From this interneuron, that is the relay neuron. Now this message is being interpreted and transferred through the motor neuron to what? To the effector organ, that is your muscle in this case, right? So you push, actually these muscles contract and you pull your hand back. This is what is reflex action, right? And this is the mechanism of the reflex action. So thinking process, as you know, it is slow in case of brain, but because of this spinal cord, we have this instant quick response to certain stimulus. So these reflex actions, they are actually reducing the burden on your brain. But there are some cerebral reflexes also, as I told you, that are actually involving the brain, right? So the salivation in your mouth, the watering of your mouth, and you see some delicious food, that is the cerebral reflex example, right, which involves actually your brain. Then the blinking of your eyes or your pupil, you know, size of the pupil, it increases and decreases in response to light. This is also example of cerebral reflex. Now what is the significance of a reflex action? Very important, understand this carefully. It avoids overloading of brain because spinal cord is now functioning here. Then it results in quick response, otherwise a thinking process of brain may take time and delay the response, which may harm the animal. So these are two major significances of reflex action that you need to remember. Number one, let's recall again, it avoids overloading of brain, and number two, it results in quick response, otherwise the thinking process of the brain may take time and delay the response, which may harm the animal. So this reflex action is providing you survival advantage also. Understand the significance, learn the definition and just learn the mechanism, which is very important. So this reflex action mechanism, remember, involves these 5 things, and you need to explain this by drawing this diagram, right? So just this is a pathway taken by reflex action, which we call as reflex arc. So you need to remember which neuron functions first and which neurons functions at this stage. You can see this motor neuron, it is going to transmit this message to the effector organ. So just remember the pathway of the reflex action, which we call as reflex arc, right? So I hope that till now here it is very clear to you what is reflex action, 2 types of reflex actions, and these 5 things are important which actually are there for the reflex action to take place, examples of reflex action also, and the significance of reflex action also.